In this video, we're going to have an introduction to some of the Azure AI services and serverless computing. Over the next few videos, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? Well, it is a software system that can adapt or learn something on its own without any explicit programming to achieve its goal. In this video, we're going to talk about machine learning. So what is machine learning? Well, machine learning is an application of artificial intelligence, where machines learn and improve from experience. What Azure Machine Learning does is it takes existing public or private data to train a model, tests the model. So a model is how reality is meant to be for some particular scenario. It applies the model to forecast the future by creating pipelines to define the experiments, and then it's got lots of different results, and it deploys the best performing algorithm, so the one that was closest to reality in the future, so that it can be used by other applications. Machine learning can be used, for instance, for the detection of credit card fraud and for product recommendations. So, for instance, if you're on Amazon and it says people who bought this also bought, or we think you will enjoy, that is a product recommendation. That is machine learning, part of artificial intelligence. Now, there are two main bits of machine learning that I want to just briefly show you. The first one is the machine learning service. So this is for data scientists who need complete control over the design and training of a model. So in the service, you can train, deploy, automate, manage, and track new machine learning models. And it uses Python or R. It's code-based. However, that's not the only machine learning thing we have. We've also got Azure Machine Learning Studio. So this is a web-based portal using standard models. So you don't start from scratch. What happens is that you go and create a model based on standard models, existing models. Now, this combines no-code drag and drop. So you can see the sort of web space that we've got behind. And it also uses code first, which are Jupyter notebooks. And models are then published as a web service. So with machine learning, for the requirements of the AZ900 exam, you're really required to know the difference between service and studio. So the service is for data scientists. They need complete control over the model, and they use Python and R. The studio is a web-based portal using standard models, and it uses drag and drop techniques and Jupyter notebooks, and you publish these models as web services. So this is Azure Machine Learning, which, as you can see, is also abbreviated to ML. In this video, we're going to briefly touch on Azure Cognitive Services. Now, just like the Studio we saw previously, it allows for general purpose, pre-trained machine learning models. However, this is a lot more specific. The Azure Cognitive Services are classified into several key categories. First of all, there are decision services. So this allows for personalized recommendations. You could moderate content. You can detect anomalies, and you can predict behavior. So that's decision services. Language services process natural language. So this is when we have the translation functions or the text analytics. So detect sentiment. So in other words, is what people saying positive, negative, in between, that sort of thing. So that's language services. Then there are speech services, such as speech to text, text to naturally sounding speech, and the translation of speech into your apps. And then there's vision services. So this can get IDs, for instance, from pictures and videos. Now you'll notice there's a fifth category here, web search. Ignore that, this isn't part anymore of Azure Cognitive Services. So Azure Cognitive Services can be used using APIs, that's application programming interfaces, and it can be used in just a few lines of code. And it doesn't require the expertise of a data scientist. After all, as I said, you can just use it in a few lines of code. So Azure Cognitive Services, it uses general purpose pre-trained machine learning models for decision services, language, speech services, and vision services. In this video, I'm going to talk about Azure Bot Service, and you can see on screen the sort of things I mean. It is a bot, artificial intelligence, replying to questions like a human. So Azure Bot Service is a platform for creating these virtual agents. So you can use them for recording restaurant bookings, gathering data, and automating systems. And as you can see on screen, it uses things like text, speech, interactive cards, and question and answers, or conversation. So Azure Bot Service is a platform for creating virtual agents for replying to questions like a human. In this video, I'm going to talk about Logic Apps. Logic Apps is an integration service. It connects apps, data, and services. Now, they run workflows based on triggers. They are serverless and stateful, so they carry over the state from the previous time. And they're either no-code or low-code solutions. But it's not necessarily easy to write more complex workflows because you are designing it. You're using a GUI, a web-based designer, to write their actions and relationships with each other. So part of the difference between Logic Apps and functions is Logic Apps, there's less need of a programmer to write the workflow in Logic Apps, whereas with functions you do need a programmer. Now triggers fire when you fire them, or an event happens, and that includes, for instance, the HTML, the web callbacks or webhooks that we also had a look at in functions, or when they're scheduled, so they could be on a timer, or when new data meets your criteria. So what can you do? Well, workflows include actions. As you can imagine from a no-code or low-code environment, there is a large collection of ready-made actions already included. We've got connectors to data. There's more than 200 different connectors and processing blocks for different services. And because you're integrating data from the cloud, there are data conversions, so maybe convert from a text to a date or the other way around, and conditional statements, switch statements, loops, and branching. So if you've done any programming, you'll recognize these as basic programming methods. Conditional statements being like an if. Similar to switch statements, they're also a bit more complicated than if. Loops like for next, branching, if this is the case, then do this. So there's a lot of programming capabilities. But there's less need for a programmer because you're using a GUI web-based designer to write the actions and their relationships to each other. But because you're not using necessarily the C# environments, though it can integrate with them, Logic Apps are less easy to write these more complicated, complex workflows. So Logic Apps. These are an integration service connecting apps, data, and services. So functions are designed to run for seconds or milliseconds. Logic Apps are designed to connect apps, data, and service together, and therefore will probably run a fair bit longer. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video so far. Coming up, we'll have a quiz to see how much you can remember. Now, if you want to learn more about Microsoft Azure, then please go to our website, idodata.com. You can find more information about our AZ900 Microsoft Azure Fundamentals course, which includes cloud concepts, core services, solutions and migration, management and security features, and ID, identity, and governance features. And also have a look at our DP900 Microsoft Azure Data Fundamentals, which looks at databases, both relational, semi-structured, and non-relational, together with additional topics. And these courses and many more are available on our website, idodata.com. So let's have a look at the quiz for this video. First question. I want to create a service for taking cinema bookings. What would be the first AI service I should think of? Would it be Azure Machine Learning, Azure Cognitive Services, Azure Bot Service, or IoT Central? And the correct answer, Azure Bot Service. Azure Machine Learning would take a lot of time in training a model. Azure Cognitive Services, it's possible as it could process natural language, but it wouldn't be my first choice, and I would not be using Internet of Things for this. Second question. My data scientists want to create a new artificial intelligence model. What Azure service will I be using? And the correct answer, Azure Machine Learning. Now, I wouldn't be using Azure Cognitive Services, this uses pre-existing AI models, or Bot Service, this is a virtual chat agent. And the final question. I want to use a pre-trained AI machine learning model and use it using a few lines of code. I don't have the expertise of a data scientist available. What service should I use? Is it Azure Synapse Analytics, Azure Machine Learning, Azure Cognitive Services, or Azure Key Vault? And the correct answer is Azure Cognitive Services. Synapse Services is used to analyze big data. Machine learning allows for the creation of a new AI model, but it requires a data scientist. And Azure Key Vault is for the storing of secrets, such as passwords. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then please like it. And why not subscribe and click that bell? That way you'll be notified about any new videos. It really does help. If you want to find out more about Microsoft Azure, then please click on the playlist on the end screen. And if you want to find out more about our courses, please go to our website. I'm Philip Burton of idodata.com. Thanks for watching and keep learning.